Hello everyone, so today is the day that you've all been waiting for. I am going to be revisiting the Gabbie Hanna anthologies. One of my most popular videos this year was my rather one-sided review of Adultolescence, so it is only fitting that over time her work has bloomed into a dandelion. And boy oh boy is it a piece of work. Now in my eyes, poetry is like red wine. It tastes abhorrent. Why do we let it exist? But also, when you taste it, you have to let it sit. Now I read the entirety of this book a few days ago with my editor and dear friend Cynic Snacks. So throughout this video, whenever I make a reference to something that Gabbie has written or drawn, yes, okay, she illustrated this book herself. This stone most definitely mudded both of the birds. I'll be cutting to our reactions so you can experience this fine wine like we did. Oh, no. Disclaimer! This video is for entertainment purposes. If you are thinking of buying this book and are looking for an honest review, you have clicked onto the wrong video. Go watch Vsauce or something, I don't know. Also, before buying this book, I saw a tweet from someone saying that there's a reference to me in it. I'll take the shout out, however negative it may be. And after reading it, I do know what they're talking about, but we're going to address that a little bit later. Instead, I'm going to be starting this video on a positive note with some of the poems that I actually enjoyed. Thank you for watching that segment of the video. I'm just kidding, okay? On page 4, there is a poem that stood out to me in a good way. It's called Flight 141, and I like how I started by disliking it and then sort of came around to it over time.
I don't particularly wish to die, but if the plane chose not to fly and plummets swiftly from the sky, well, I suppose that'd just be fine.
I like the personification of the plane, because planes can't choose to do things.
Okay, yeah, sure. So I don't particularly wish to die, but if the pilot chose not to fly and plummet the plane swiftly from the sky, well, I suppose that'd be just fine.
It would probably be a terrorist attack. Whenever I fly, I always accept death.
Yeah,
do you
same.
ever accept death?
There's nothing you can do. So try not to worry.
Yeah.
And then I just sit there and worry for 6 hours.
I guess this is probably one of the ones we can relate to more than anything. Because it's for all those people with the slight fear of flying that you don't really have until you're actually on the plane. Yeah. It's probably the first time that Gabbie Hanna has ever been relatable to me. I'm wondering though if that's more of a stopped clock telling the right time twice a day kind of meme. Because there are a lot of moments in this book where she hits you with the, ooh, life is so sad. Have you ever felt sadness before? Waves on page 16, for example, is not a good poem. In fact, I wouldn't even say it is a poem. Life is full of ups and downs. Oh, cool. When's the up part? Not this page, that's for certain. The only real juice I got out of this poem after analysing it is that waves go up and down, and that's why they're in the sea, talking about ups and downs. Poetry. That being said, I much prefer these discussions of emotions compared with the range that Dixie D'Amelio has employed in her music. Sometimes I don't want to be happy and I was really, 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 really sad. Do not count as lyrics, I'm afraid. My personal favourite poem of this book came on page 23 with Distance. Little by little, pebble by pebble, speck by speck of dust, the mountains eroded, leaving a canyon between the two of us. The whispers were bellowed, resentments were echoed across a cleft so grand. All you needed to close the gap was to reach out for my hand. That's actually a really nice one.
This would work in a song. This feels more lyrical.
No, I prefer it in a poem. Cynic remarks that the poem feels somewhat lyrical. And speaking of lyrics, there was another moment on page 86 where I made a similar observation. The poem Plagiarism feels like it was meant to be a lyric for a song that just got discarded somewhere along the line. You can't take credit for my sadness. I earned this on my own. It's clearly been sat in her notes app for the last 2 years waiting to find its place in a song. And again, Dixie, if you ever need lyrical help, come straight here. You'll find a plethora of options to stop rhyming sad with bad for the 6,000 fucking time. On page 95, the poem Commitment is Gabbie's best attempt at gathering her feelings about men. Because yes, there's a lot of men don't deserve rights in this book. Not wrong. I don't want a boyfriend, I just want a guy to hang and grab food with almost every day and cuddle with every night, who I can introduce to my parents and also doesn't talk to other girls in any romantic capacity. And maybe in the future, if it's something we both mutually decide is financially and personally right for us, buy a home and start a family. Nothing serious. I'm chill like that. Yeah, I kind of like that. That's it's very honest.
That's a bit kind of like the hyper psycho girlfriend vibe. I quite like that one.
That poem was good, in my opinion. It plays on her insecurities, her contradicting feelings towards men, her excitement and even fear of the future. And then elsewhere, you just have these really repeated notions of both loving and hating men. I think it would be passable if it was a one-off, but it is the most recurring theme of this book. There's a poem on page 85, for example, called Indecisive. I never want to see you again. For now. It'll be extremely painful for you. Commitment, the poem I mentioned earlier, handles contradicting emotions so much better than this superficial one-liner. And to make matters worse, only a few pages earlier we have the poem Voicemail. It's just the same poem with some swear words in it. I hope I never have to hear your stupid fucking voice again. Please fucking call me. And I could go on. There's another poem on page 135. My therapist reminds me a lot of my ex. He makes me cry at least once a week, but I keep going back to him. Now I'd argue that this poem is better than the last two because it actually tries to relate the emotions to something outside of them. But by this point, you've already read the one-liner. You've already read the one-liner with gamer words in it. The impact has very much been Madeleine McCann. Its parents left it for tapas years ago, okay? It's gone. And we have that same problem with different themes in this book, be it with Inferno and Ironic, which are on the same page.
Why do we concern ourselves with the meaning of life and death? Don't you know that dying is trading one hell for the next? Why is it always about dying and hell and everything sucks? And it's like,
I thought this was going to be about flowers.
That's the same thought. That one and that one are the same thing.
And then you also have it with the poems Money and Tinted, which are about crying in public. Now, I'm well aware that repetition is something quite subjective in art. Let's say in music, it's important to have repeated melodies, repeated lyrics, like you would in a chorus, for example. That being said, I take issue with it in this book because I don't trust YouTubers. I've had a group channel for less than a year, and we've already been approached with a book deal. We were even told that we wouldn't have to write any of it. Gabbie has written this herself, so it doesn't surprise me that there are repetitions. She probably has a quota to fulfill. And in the words of Skepta, because when your bars are hard like mine, fam, sometimes man I gotta say them twice. Except the bars in this case aren't particularly hard, and that's a bit of a shame, because after reading them, I wanted to hit my head with something. That being said, I would take these repeated poems 100 times over some of the bad poems in this book. On page 20, there's a poem called Gross, and I'm just gonna show you my initial reaction to it.
Oh, no.
Tear-stained cheeks. That booty's so fine. And drear-stained... What's drear? Fear-stained weeks. And we're-stained freaks.
I really hate this. Like, tear-stained cheeks is nice. I like that. That works.
Yeah.
Drear-stained peaks, that doesn't mean anything. It's bullshit. That's not a word. And then we're-stained freaks is just so like, nah, fuck this. This poem
She
sucks.
never really needs to rhyme in her poetry.
Yeah.
She never, like, makes a point of it, so it's weird that she's made a point of it here.
It's just trying so hard.
It's come to my attention that we've never actually named the James Marriott viewership, so I'd like to put forward the name the We're Stained Freaks. Stained with what? I hear you ask. Well, that's for me to know and for you to find out. Not in a weird way, it's not. My least favourite of Gabbie's poems are when she's sort of grovelling about the situation she's in despite being hugely successful. Too old to be relatable, too young to be wise, too smart to be believable, too dumb to be disguised, too dull to be an artist. I mean, you've written a book. Too creative for 9 to 5, too weak to find my purpose, too strong to say goodbye.
Right, okay, this is a mess.
I think she indulges a little bit too much in the self-imposed purpose of this book, which is to be #relatable. A lot of people feel similar emotions to what she's trying to put across here about not knowing your place or purpose. But she is an artist. This book is proof of the fact that she is an artist. She isn't relatable, I do agree with that, but that doesn't stop her from attempting to make that her niche. The smart and dumb comparisons don't make sense. There are plenty of creative 9 to 5s, and it's not weak people that say goodbye, it's strong people. This to me doesn't feel like a matter of nitpicking. The poem is incorrect. Another issue I have is whenever I find myself sitting back and actually enjoying a moment in this book, there seems to be this unspoken rule where Gabbie goes all fucking Thanos. The quality must be rebalanced. I mentioned a poem called Commitment earlier, which I really like, but on the next page, page 97, we are blessed to hot. Oh.
This might be the cringiest one yet, I think, maybe.
Where there's smoke, there's fire, or possibly a vape pen. Either way, get the hell out of there.
Cool, funny, got him.
You vape? That's so lame.
Or maybe there is actually a fire, and in which case I agree with you, Gabbie.
Oh,
Yeah.
You should be getting out of there. Name dropping vaping in poetry should be illegal. It would be like if you took all of the musicians that have made COVID a part of their lyrics and just trapped them in 2015. For the record, I'd rather be in 2020 than 2015, and that's saying a fucking lot. And when the poems aren't necessarily bad, they just come across as lazy to me. On page 182, for example, there's a poem called Decline, which reads, I lost my credit card, and the customer service woman asked me for my credit card number, but I don't know my credit card number because I lost my credit card. Okay. It just seems like a gotcha. Another one of the many self-deprecating notes she wrote on her iPhone 3 years ago. I've got nothing against catch-22s in art. This one just felt a bit basic. And even then, as a catch-22, it doesn't really feel like it works. Doesn't your Google Chrome save your credit card information? I know mine does. I'm pretty sure that's why a customer service woman would ask for your credit card number still. Most people just have it. You do live in the 21st century, Gabbie. And then probably my highlight for laziness in this book comes on pages 142 and 143. It's a poem called Blind, and it starts starts off as something very wholesome. Gabbie wrote a poem for her blind acquaintance. It's a decent poem. I've got nothing to particularly criticize about it. And then to top it off, the poem is then repeated in Braille on the other page. But then Cynic and I noticed something.
It's a cute idea, but have you got the physical copy of the book there?
I do.
Does the page have indentations?
What page is this?
142.
No.
Oh my god. Commit to the idea, please. She messaged Molly hey, did you get the poem? She's like, nah.
Obviously, I can't show you physically, but I can assure you that this is not Braille. It's very much just paper. What could have been something rather wholesome just comes off a tad gimmicky. It's just another illustration to add to an already disturbing pile of illustrations. There are 3 nude women littered throughout this book like pornographic Easter eggs.
Ooh, who's that?
No idea. I can't keep that in.
Oh god.
Oh god, we definitely can't keep that in.
It gets worse.
And if the illustrations aren't explicitly nude, they do seem to have some rather questionable undertones, like on page 30. That's Uranus.
She's so clever.
Wait, is that actually, do you reckon that's actually what she meant?
Wait, what planet
Gabbie Hanna eats ass,
which
confirmed.
Planet has 2 rings? I don't think it's any planet. Oh, it is Uranus! That is actually Uranus, yep.
She's eaten Uranus. Cynic. That being said, I actually came to enjoy a lot of the illustrations in this book, especially compared with the first book. If we try our best to put the nudity and the Braille aside, a lot of them contribute to the messages throughout the book and also add a little bit more personality to Gabbie's words. There is, however, no excuse for lass fake as. A poetry book is most definitely not a place for puns. But with that being said, I should not be throwing stones from my porcelain house. And now the poem you've all been waiting for. Cynic and I had been recording for about 36 minutes when we got to page 27 and the poem titled Rest in Peace.
There's a really tiny little speech bubble there as well. The man who feasts...
Can you do this away from your microphone? Could you walk to the other end of your room and read it so it makes more sense?
The man who feasts on the deconstruction of others will never be full. This is about you, mate.
Oh my god.
That little rat at the back, that's you.
That's me!
That's you, that's actually you. You literally feast, James, on the destruction of others. That's you! Do you remember that thing she said about the chocolate?
Oh my god!
It's you!
Oh my god! Now the rat is a recurring character in this book, and it doesn't seem to represent one theme in particular. For example, this is the only time where the rat is discussing the idea of feasting on destruction. Not that I've ever gone for that at Nando's, but a little bit of peri-peri salt, and I wouldn't say no. Now, I didn't think this section was about me at first. I thought it could be self-referential. She may have had some negative opinions about others. Maybe she saw them fail and realized that it didn't actually make her feel better about herself. But it's the use of the word feasting, which makes me feel like she's referring to people who've capitalized off of her dramas or her failures. For both public and private reasons, I know that Gabbie was not a fan of my first video on her poetry, and I'd like to think that my approach to Bad Book Club and my videos in general has evolved since then. For a long time, I was pretty jealous of other people doing better than me. The reason I turned to commentary videos in the first place was out of the rather obscure way that I handled other people being more successful than I was, and ironically it led to me becoming a successful person. Since the last few Bad Book Club videos I made, I've released original music. Slowdown was a good start to what has now become a huge passion of mine, but it most certainly has its faults. People poked at those faults when it first came out, and now so do I. So with hindsight evoked, I don't want Bad Book Club to become a thing where I just shit on other people's art. People love this book. I don't, you might not, but some people do, and it deserves respect in and of itself because of that. What I aim to do with these videos is take something artistic and then pivot it in an entertaining light to a completely different audience than the one it was intended for. People have done this with Slowdown, and quite frankly, if it happens again next month with him or the rest of the EP, then so be it. That's the internet. If that makes you think of me as a rat with a walking stick, I'm not 31, I don't need a fucking walking stick, then that's fine. I completely understand. What I'm happy with this year is that I've started to come to terms with why my career started off so negatively. Don't get me wrong, I'll still be an asshole because it's funny, alright? You love it. But at least when it comes to Bad Book Club, I want you all to appreciate the fact that these books even exist, because without it, you wouldn't have this content. And at the end of the day, at times it felt like I was bashing poems just because I knew that Gabbie Hanna had written them. On page 10, there's a poem called Nightlight, for example.
Daddy, help me, I'm scared.
That reminds me of last night.
Darling, what's wrong, little girl? I'm frightened. I don't like the mud. Stay in here.
Yes! Now, it does read like a children's poem, but that's the point of it. It just so happens that Gabbie Hanna has spent so much time spinning in the figurative washing machine of internet culture to the point where her works will inevitably be stained by her past. Despite the fact that I don't quite understand why this book was made, there are poems titled Bloom and Dandelion, which obviously refer to the title of this work, but don't really have a consistent theme. Maybe the purpose of this book is money. Maybe this is just the easiest way for Gabbie to publicize the creative side of her notes app. Or maybe its purpose Christmas is simply not for me to know. Maybe it's for her audience to find out. And with that rather thoughtful bombshell, I'd like to thank every single person who supported me this year. Anyone who's left a like, anyone who's left a comment, anyone who's subscribed, you better fucking subscribe. Every time the year comes to a close and this is still my job, I feel like the luckiest person alive, and it is people like you that lend me that luck. And with that being said, have a great Christmas. Until next time.